What's going on, guys? The UFC White House card was announced this past weekend at UFC 326, and I figured we go ahead and talk about it. I mean, right at the gate, this is a very strong card when you look at the name value. We've got the headliner of Ilia Topuria versus Justin Gaethje for the unified lightweight title. We know that Justin Gaethje just won the interim title against Paddy Pimblett a few months ago. We have the co-main of Alex Pereira versus Cyril Gane. Cyril Gane's getting a fifth title shot in the UFC. Yikes, but this is for the interim heavyweight championship belt, so that means Tom Aspinall was not stripped, which I think is really good news. If this all ended with Tom being stripped, then the UFC is done completely. But we have some other good fights on here. O'Malley versus Zahabi. I thought they should have done Sandhagen. I saw Sandhagen was talking about that, but O'Malley came out and said that he was never offered Sandhagen, so I'm not sure what's going on there. Huffy versus Chandler is really good. Chandler thought he was going to get McGregor here. We'll get into McGregor later. He's been talking about this. But Huffy gets another victim. I think Huffy's going to find a highlight KO on Chandler, but it's still going to be a really entertaining bout. Maybe Chandler's pressure is too much for Huffy. I think not, but we'll see. This is probably the biggest red flag of the card, though, is Bo Nickel versus Kyle Dawkins. We were under the impression that if we were to see Bo Nickel on this card, it was going to be against Colby Covington, so I'm not quite sure what happened there, but Kyle Dawkins, big 2026 on supposedly the biggest card of all time in the history of the UFC. And then you have the opener of Diego Lopez versus, why can't I remember his name? Garcia. I can't remember his first name, but he had a really good win recently over, it wasn't David, it might have been Onama, I'm not sure. But anyway, this is a very good card, but I'll be the first to say it. It's underwhelming. For months on end, I'll be honest here, we've heard about the UFC White House. We heard about, Dana and Trump, bigging up this card, really trying to tell us that it was going to be the biggest thing ever. They were talking numbers here. I'm trying to see my other tabs because they're not previewing. I mean, this card was promoted to us as, like, the card of cards. We had Trump back in December saying that we're going to have 8 to 9 title fights. That's essentially most of the titles that are in the UFC. You had the president of the United States, for some god-awful reason, talking about how many fights would be on this card, saying 8 to 9 title fights, which isn't possible, but hearing this from the president, a lot of people got hope. And it underdelivered, man. I mean, we have one title on this card, truly. This is an interim title. We have one unified championship bout on this card. And I don't really think any of these are number one contenders. If O'Malley wins, they're going to give it to him. I don't know if you can give Huffy a win. Obviously, Lopez isn't getting that shot. It's Steve Garcia. I couldn't remember his name. It's Steve Garcia. But I'll be honest, from what we heard of this card, and they were talking about Pereira Jones. I just dropped a video on that. Go check it out. They were talking about Ilya Makhachev. Apparently, that fell through. And that's kind of what caused this card to be so bad. We saw recently at like press conferences, Dana White talk about how a fight fell through. I'll let him speak right here. Let me unmute it.
About the White House fight. So we've been working on this thing nonstop, and one of the fights literally just fell out when I walked in here. I think Hunter killed himself.
So you can tell by the look on Hunter Campbell, and I can't remember this guy's name, but he's one of the other managers. That might be Mick Maynard. Both of these guys, a lot of distraught on their faces after finding out that a fight fell through, and we don't know what fight fell through. Dana never confirmed it. There was speculation of Ilya Islam, but their managers were saying conflicting things. There were speculations of Jones Pereira, but Dana said they were never in negotiations. So I'm not really sure what fight really fell through, but it just seems that this card was plagued from the start. There was rumors that Ilya Makhachev was to be made here for the welterweight belt. They asked Ilya, who do you want to fight at the White House, Justin or Makhachev? And the ball's on this guy. He chose Makhachev at 170. And apparently Makhachev has a hand injury, but he's filming videos of him doing duck shooting. So I don't know. A lot of people are going after Islam, saying he ducked, saying he's a fake champ. I mean, it's hard to say that he isn't ducking, it feels like. At 55, he got the excuse of, I'm chasing legacy. And he beat JDM, and Ilya's like, hey, I'm still up here at 55. I'll come up to 70 and fight you. And he's like, nah, I got a hurt hand. But Usman. So it is kind of ducking in a way, but that fight fell through. Not only that, we saw that Jones talked about how he was in negotiations, and Dana said he was never even considered. I think that comes after the Tom Aspinall fiasco, in which Jones made them go up to $30 million and then still said no. And I heard that when he came back, trying to get this White House fight potentially against Alex Pereira, he was asking for the same payday of $30 million after giving him the finger the last time. So I'm not surprised about that one falling through. I'm not going to put that on the UFC. But the one that I definitely want to hold the UFC accountable for is Conor McGregor. As much as this man has been a cokehead, partying, maybe assaulting women allegedly, this guy is a draw on any card. And he talks about how they don't usually put him on the big headlines because he can pull, views on the weaker cards. But he was talking about the White House here that he's accepted a ton of fights, and I'll let him talk just for a little bit because he looks coked out of his mind. But take it away, Connor.
In gates and secondary sales. They don't usually put me on UFC 200s or 300s or the Sphere. They usually put me on UFC 201 or 301. You know, like a double sale thing. That's the White House is going to hit no matter what. Who the fuck gives a fuck who we put on it? And then wheel McGregor out for the second one.
So McGregor kind of knows that he's a cash cow that isn't going to be used to maximize cash on a single event, rather over multiple events. So they're essentially stalling out his career. There's been tons of cards that were there was a 301 and they didn't have McGregor on there. Like there's been moments where McGregor could be in there and they haven't scheduled him and he's been begging for a fight. He said he's accepted every contract sent his way. Allegedly even Carlos Prates. That's a matchup I think he would get slumped violently. So the ball's on Conor. I mean, it's respect. He never ducks a fight, but the UFC is intentionally holding him. And that's kind of what's holding back on this White House card. If you're thinking White House, you're thinking biggest card of all time, they're getting McGregor back. But no, the UFC, they haven't valued their star power in years. They think that just the name UFC sells the product, and they put the stars on the weaker cards just to be like, hey, this card isn't that weak. I mean, let's be honest. UFC 326 was nothing special to write home about in terms of name value. The fights delivered, and they were all sleepers if you knew. But from a casual standpoint, a lot of those names nobody knows, and it was carried by a headline of Oliveira Holloway. Like that's what they do with McGregor, a kind of weak card, but it's carried by a McGregor fight. And I think that practice is horrible because it gets us cards like this when we were promised the greatest card of all time. They were telling us that the Sphere's budget is going to look like ashtray change compared to the budget for the White House. Initially for the White House, they were saying no fans. It was going to be invite only, about 5,000 people, all the execs, all the elites of the world, very Hunger Games-esque type stuff. And now we're hearing that Trump is going to have the canvas on the Oval like lawn. They're going to walk out of the Oval Office, and across from that, they're doing the press conference at the Lincoln Memorial, and I've heard rumors that Trump is going to build an 80,000 seat capacity arena now. I don't know what's going on. As an American, this is one of the biggest wastes of taxpayer monies, and as a UFC fan, this is one of the biggest disappointments. I'm going to be real, just because, like, I'm very happy. I'm going to enjoy these fights. These fights have great meaning to them, but don't sell me this for months on end, since September, about, oh, this White House card is going to be the best of the best. I'm making matchups now for the White House cards. You tell me, back then, you were thinking of Bo Nickel versus Kyle Dawkins. It doesn't add up. This card is just a little bit underwhelming when compared to the amount of hype behind it, and I think anyone who has been seeing all the hype in their feed, like we haven't been able to escape it. I think anybody would agree with me. You can see in the chat over here, I'll move my border. People are just calling it out, saying it's underwhelming. You think you're gonna get something big, it's not there. Like historical card, this is not historical. When we look back in history and go, dude, at one point they literally held a UFC event at the White House, the capital of the country, right? Like the building of a country. And you're like, oh, that must have been an insane card. Who was like the main event opener? And it's like Diego Lopez. You're like, damn, okay, Diego's good. Who was he fighting? Steve Garcia. Now, Steve Garcia is great. Steve Garcia is super entertaining. He just got that nasty KO in his recent fight. And it will be a good fight, and he's deserving, but his name is not White House worthy. We got Steve Garcia, Amian Zahabi, and Kyle Dawkins on the biggest card of all time. UFC 300 was more stacked than this, and I think this entire card has no prelims. I haven't seen anything about prelims. I think this is going to be strictly a 5-6 fight card. It's a bit disappointing. If a fight only has 6 cards, you're thinking Pereira Jones, Islam Topuria, O'Malley Yan 2. You're thinking legacy matchups. No. Apparently, Islam's ducking Topuria, so Gaethje gets murdered for the interim belt. I think Pereira beats Gone. O'Malley probably gets it done against Zahabi. Huffy finds a nasty KO on Chandler. Nickel probably outpaces Dawkins, and Lopez, Garcia. I don't know about that one. Both of them have heat in their hands, and they go for the kill. Like, this is a good card. I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the video here because I'm kind of just restating, but this is a very good card. If you gave this card to me any other day of the week, I'd be like, thank you. Great stuff. Like, thank you, Dana. You really cooked with this one. And he did cook with this one. But it was the hype, dude. this thing was supposed to be the next best thing since sliced bread. This thing was supposed to cure cancer, but no. Kyle Dawkins, 2026. Again, I will enjoy this card. I will be here, but I'm gonna say it like the rest of Twitter is saying it. This is underwhelming, and I think we need a little bit better. But there's nothing the UFC can do because there was so many situations that were within and without of their control. There was other things that they couldn't control, like Jones, just destroying negotiations and stalling Tom Aspinall's career. But then they could control Conor McGregor, and I don't know why they didn't get him on this card. But I digress. Let me know what you think of this card, man. If I'm being too harsh, let me know. Let me know what you would have had on this card because I think Connor, Jones, those are some names that you should have had here. I don't know if I agree with the Jones payday, but biggest card of all time. I expected just a bit more of a name value. Let me know if I'm tweaking and I'm just like spoiled rotten, or if you agree with me on this. Like, comment, share, subscribe. I got a few more videos coming out this week. Yeah, see ya.